And good morning. And
Morning.
hello, everybody. Good morning, Marianne. Morning, Justin. Morning, Megan. How you doing today?
Good. Can't
Good.
complain.
Excellent. I just want to say thanks for everyone for watching our live stream. Today we have a really great episode around the modern workplace. We just wrapped up our last sequence around compliance and some data privacy. So I think it really makes a lot of sense for us to work into like actually doing the work, getting started and doing things. So modern workplace. And if you don't know us, we're Valiant Technology. We're a managed service provider based in New York we work anywhere in the United States, Canada as well at times, and maybe the UK as well. It's pretty exciting stuff. And so if you have a chance, check us out on our YouTube channel. We have a bunch of episodes on there. It's thevaliantway.com live for a weekly live stream, and YouTube The Valiant Way. So with that, I want to get started on our little segment called The Download. Justin.
All right. Yeah, thank you. So
Oh, there
there
you go.
we go. That's better.
It's
All
live.
right. So today on the download, I want to talk a little bit about multi-factor authentication (MFA). And you know that we always say MFA is super important, and the single biggest thing you can do to increase your security. But also want to point out that it's not a panacea, that there still are other things that you need to do to stay secure. And one big story that illustrates this is a breach that happened this past week at US Cellular. They had a breach of their CRM system, which is what they use to manage their customer records. The breach seems to have been caused by some type of phishing or social engineering attack where somebody was tricked into downloading and installing or clicking a link on their machine and giving access into their system. So even with two-factor, that is a type of breach that can occur. But even more than that, the data that was taken included customer data for cell customers. And in some cases, the mobile numbers for those customers were actually ported to other systems. That means that if somebody was using their US Cellular number as a text base MFA, that would have been compromised because that number no longer went to them. It went to somebody else. And in a targeted attack, that's a way that someone could bypass MFA. There are other types of MFA that are really more secure than text based. The ones where there's an app on your phone and it asks you allow, accept, or deny, those kinds of things, or the ones where there's a code. It's called a time based one time password. And these are more secure because there's less of that middle transit that can be breached or hacked, and more of a contained system for that
Mm.
that second factor. But I also want to talk a little bit about how that breach was sort of likely caused by phishing or social engineering. And we're also seeing an increase in the types of attacks that are bypassing MFA. So again, MFA super important to have, but it doesn't mean that you can let down your guard on everything else. Really, security versus threat actors consider like a red queen problem. And this is where both sides have to keep leapfrogging each other. Every time there's a new security threat, there's a new fix in place to prevent it. And every time there's a new fix in place to prevent it, somebody finds another hole to try and exploit. So you're never going to have a situation where you're 100% always secure. What you need is really a situational awareness. Understanding what your logins are supposed to look like, what your policies are, what your processes are. So if you get a link that looks suspicious and takes you to a web page that it's asking for your username and password and MFA code and it's slightly different than what it's supposed to be, you know, taking a second to think about that and think about, is this a real thing? Is this something I should be doing, or should I reach out for help and verify that? And with that, I mean, training for those sorts of things are always important to have, to make sure that you're aware of that. So
Mhm.
to sum up, it is MFA is great. You should have MFA on everything you can. Use time-based or app-based rather than text-based when you can. But just because you have MFA doesn't mean you should let your guard down and assume that you are always safe. You should always be aware of what you're logging into and what information you're giving out. And
Right.
that's the download.
Awesome, Justin. Thank you. That's really
Well,
great. Definitely the arms and armor problem, and continually getting more and more hostile environments out there, and we have to keep them fully aware of it at all times. So that's
Mhm.
great. And that actually goes into our modern workplace. And,
Mhm.
it was really going into it because the modern workplace has so many differences from past environments that we have to be really mindful of it. So before we get into that, though, we should really start talking about what is the modern workplace? How do we define it? What exactly it is? I mean, at least we give us what we define it as, right?
Mhm.
And that's first what I can say. I mean, Justin, Marion, how did you guys want to just kind of kick it off? It's kind of nebulous at this point, right? So let's give it some meat.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, we've talked a lot about the modern workplace, and I think, that phrase has been used for since we wouldn't consider that being modern anymore. So I
Right,
I think the biggest thing
right,
is that while these tools and all the things we're going to talk about were in place because of everything that happened in 2020, it actually became really fast tracked and it became, something that everyone can use and is available for everyone and everyone kind of had to use, which is really cool for us. I'm glad that that infrastructure was there, but yeah, a lot of people were thrust into the modern workplace and now everyone's going like, oh, what are we doing? So
right,
um I mean, that doesn't really define necessarily what the term means. So, if we're talking about the modern workplace, it's really about embracing collaboration and in technology for the sake of positive change. So that's how it's always evolving. You know, if it what was the modern workplace 10 years ago is not the same here, but it has the same principle of
right.
embracing technology to get those positive changes. So, all the collaboration and the flexibility of working and all of that stuff. Um,
Right.
yeah, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that decoupling of physicality from the ability to do your work,
Yeah.
um, is something that we at Valiant have been thinking about for years as, not only as providers, but for our own operational workflow and workloads.
Mhm.
I know it became really important to me and I think many of the staff here after in 2012, which sounds
Mhm.
like so long ago to say it, but that was Sandy. That was
Yeah.
here in New York. Massive parts of the city were unavailable or destroyed or underwater, and
Mhm.
really kind of. I know that for us, that was the first time that many people took seriously backup disaster recovery.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But I think we thought about one further. I know, Justin, you spent so many years working with us customers to kind of get this mindset out there.
Yeah, I mean, it was not just the disaster recovery piece of it. I mean, that definitely was the first part, but also shifting to cloud services in general, because
Mhm.
we in 2012, we still wasn't uncommon to have an Exchange server in your office,
Mhm.
and
Right.
Great for email, yeah.
clients that ran BlackBerry server, for example. So
Yeah.
in order
Yes.
to get email on their mobile devices, they
Mhm.
had to run through the internet connection and a server running in their office. And if the power was out or the internet line was down, not only you can't get into work to do your work, but also your email's not working because
Right.
it's not running through there. So there was that shift to cloud, to building into, like, okay, I can't afford to buy a data center rack full of gear just to run my email, but I can move my email to a cloud provider.
Mhm.
And that's, I think we saw that increase as well. That
Right.
really drives a lot of what we consider modern.
Mhm.
Exactly. I think that the first level communication shift was the first step of it. I think that really kind of goes into like some of our definitions, the four key components of what we kind of define it as. I think the first one is modern tools.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a great place to start. Like, what's a modern tool? You know, so how would what would we consider some of the modern tools that we use day in day out and our customers use?
I think the first of that is the cloud tool systems that aren't tied to a physical location. That
Mhm.
Right.
if my office is gone for whatever reason, pipe burst, and the office is, the server rack is dead, that doesn't affect my ability to do work, because my tools, the software, or the systems they use, the data processing isn't in one single place.
Mhm.
Right. Right. It's funny. It's not everything is so new, but it's all combined in a more unique and holistic package that is usable than it used to be in the past, with the remote
Mhm.
access being much easier, or not even not no need for remote access. Right, that's the one piece of it.
Yeah.
So Exactly.
I mean, it is so easy to work from home, and I think a lot of us have experienced that. Some people were pleasantly surprised when they got tossed into that pool, but
Right.
some people it took a little adjusting, which is fine. That's why we have training and things like that. But it's just nice that this stuff is available, and even things like, well, maybe your home computer doesn't have Office on it, but if you have Office 365, you have Office Online, and you can work on Word or a
Right.
version of browser version of Word. So yeah, all these tools being available, sort of like on demand, on location, really provides all that flexibility and is what people are doing now.
And I think the other piece of it is just that it's available as you said, available everywhere on all devices. It's ubiquitous. And
Yeah.
the other piece is that I think from 2012 and Sandy and that period to now is 4G and our 5G rollout that's happening already here in New York and other major markets, and that massive change, and mobile devices, and the mobile device lives in the cloud, right? If you think about it, they need it.
Yeah.
Not to go back to Blackberries, but that was the only thing working back in after Sandy, was that the Blackberry communication. The chat was working, but the email wasn't connected. But really interesting stuff. So yeah, I mean, so I guess the other piece of it, our next piece of it is the improved collaboration, which we're seeing it. I mean, what a change that just the video conferencing and so many different things. Marion, you train a bunch of different people on that. What platforms and what's good, what's bad, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I find a lot of people, if they can, find a way that it correlates to something that they're used to. So things like cloud-based file servers, you usually have your files, which would have been maybe your desktop or your personal shares, and then there's like the shared drive. But some people have been using, Google Drive for a while, even if it was just for personal stuff. And some people haven't, but it's still, they can compare it to what they have been doing. So I think that's really cool way that people are able to, connect and work on files together with, again, being in completely different locations.
Right.
I know, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I mean, this is just like, I also have like a life of writing and stuff outside of work too, but like here I have SharePoint and I can, work with Justin or George on a proposal for someone. But if I'm writing a script or something, Google Drive has been my main tool for that. And that, honestly, I might have gotten more work done because I think more about, oh, it's so simple to send it. I don't need to make an in-person meeting. And that's just like, it's kind of weird that you don't have an excuse not to collaborate, kind of.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yeah.
But if you do need an in-person meeting, we're seeing a lot of people shift to the Zoom meeting or the Teams meeting or the GoTo meeting and things like that. Google Meet, I've seen a lot of even just doctor's appointments happen over Google Meet and things like that. So we primarily use Teams, but we've also used whatever our clients, invite us to. So we've got plenty of stuff about Zoom and things like that. I think Zoom's kind of become one of those terms like Kleenex, where you say, "Oh, do you want to have a Zoom call?" and it doesn't matter what platform you're on. They mean a video conference call. But that transition's become a lot more comfortable for people. So things like video interviews, video, sales is happening a lot more, and I think that's just really cool that it's becoming accepted.
I think it's crazy, even in entertainment, seeing it. Watched an interview with where the people being interviewed are on Zoom, on Skype, on they're not the days of the live via satellite link are it's anyone can do it. Oh, you've got a cell phone, great, we can do a live interview with you and get you on the air. That's all you need.
Yeah, and there's so much to do. I mean, I've got a lot of stuff going on back here, but you can very easily get a green screen, which actually, if you believe Justin's background, you were wrong.
My green bag.
But it does. It makes it a lot better because you may have limited space, and you can still give a fairly professional, well, very professional for us, but presentation, interview, whatever. So it's very cool.
Yeah, and you can have fun with it too. You could for personal stuff. I've got a holodeck background. I have a Simpsons couch background. Just for play around with, or on silly internal meetings and stuff. There's just fun things you can do.
Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
and there's so much obviously applicable to the modern workplace, but yeah, I mean, doing this for entertainment for personal connection is also huge. I mean, this weekend I did an escape the Zoom, which was pretty cool. Like instead of in-person escape the room, next week I'm planning to host a paint and sip, show
Oh,
people
nice.
all that
That
stuff.
is
There you go.
yeah, Mary.
It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. So we have a question from our always loyal viewer, Stefan Kaup. Stefan, thanks a lot. If someone is anticipating staying in a remote work setting, instead of going back to a networked office, should they be considering higher level laptops than they would normally have used in the office? I think
Depends.
depends.
Yeah.
I would say that the most important thing is that you size the, much like we talked about in some of our other streams, sizing the laptop to the workload is really important.
Yeah.
But anticipating that you're going to have cameras, maybe headsets,
Mhm.
light rings. You really want to be able to not have the machine stagger or stutter under the extra workload of us using a video conferencing platform. Any one of these platforms can be fairly processor and memory intensive. So I would say if you're gonna use it as your primary workstation, in the past people used to have these pretty powerful desktops on their at the office. It's a great big machine. Now, we're seeing a shift that most companies are not deploying desktops at all anymore because it's the portability factor. So I'd say yes. The short answer is yes, and I would say that another important piece is kitting out the end user better so that they have a better experience doing video conferencing day in day out. I know, like here at Valiant, we want to make sure everyone has like a good headset. Game changer. It sounds sounds better. It's much more comfortable versus than screaming at the microphone in your laptop. I think that if you're doing a lot of this, particularly looking at some better lighting, I said the backgrounds. We're always looking to improve our meetings and our production, if that you want to call it that. So I think it's really important. So with that, so and I think some of this stuff is in the blog post that I'm putting together for next week. Just about some of the stuff, our lessons learned from working remotely, like things I found, like setting up a home office in a way. I worked from home for a number of years, just in life, and it was always like it was never as convenient or easy to work with, and never having this kind of connection. Sometimes I feel more connected to the team now remotely than we did because I see everyone more often in a strange way. So it's really exciting. So I think it's pretty cool. So that'll be next week. I'll put some lessons learned, especially around light rings. They're very fascinating. You can deep dive into that one. You really can. So all right, that's a little bit of improved collaboration and video conversation. But I think the other piece that's really important is security and compliance in the modern office. I think the biggest piece here, and Justin and Justin really worked quite a bit on this, is the idea that we have perimeterless security. And what does that even mean?
The old idea of security was kind of like airport security. You go through security. Once you're through the gate, you're clear, you're good. And we build that with firewall setup. And obviously there's other stuff like antivirus running on machines and things like that. But the general assumption was you protect the castle wall. But once you're inside the castle wall, you can do whatever you need to do because you're in and you're good. And that really, even in the last 10 years, has been less and less true as people move in and out of network, as people have mobile devices that are connected to Wi-Fi and personal devices. But without like a true modern workplace, because those services and things you're accessing are cloud-based, they're outside of your physical perimeter, your network perimeter. So you really shift security into different modes. You really want to look at like end-to-end solutions where you are watching what individual machines and users and services are doing and tracking that activity, not like a tracking to spy, but like tracking that activity for things that are malicious or that are not normal. And we work with a partner for our clients, a company called Scout that develops that, where they have a full SOC SIM and are reviewing logs that come in to review everything. But there are other things that you can do as well too in the modern workplace to help secure things. One big one that we're seeing is a shift less away from the like centralized firewall security and DNS management on individual machines.
Right.
If I want to make sure that my fleet of Office machines only goes to approved sites or doesn't go to sites that are marked as hosting malware, I can't do that in the firewall anymore because the computer is not behind the firewall. It's in somebody's
Correct.
home office that they're, or their home that they're sharing with 20 other devices. So by managing DNS on the machine, you can bring that, lock that security to that workstation.
Right.
And similarly I'd say with compliance too, doing that, all of the data, keeping the data within a controlled environment rather than by controlling it. It's on a server in the office and that's where it lives. Well, it's in the cloud, it's in a cloud service, but we're monitoring all the activity and we can see who's sharing files outside and what's happening with it, and we can prevent files from leaving the OneDrive or the Google Drive folder, so it can't be
Correct.
shared out. And in some ways that becomes more secure than doing perimeter security.
Exactly, because it has, you can check you have control of the entire life cycle of the data from when it enters the system till when it's decommissioned or not used any longer, and that's become a requirement we're seeing for so many customers in industries that you wouldn't think. We're seeing that for professional services companies or not even, or even like construction companies, that sort of thing. So it's really fascinating. I think it has to do with, part of this is the New York Shield Act, part of it's California privacy laws that are coming online, GDPR. So it's a lot of that going on there. So security gets really important in this. And I think the last piece, just in this modern workplace, is business intelligence. Using this data, collecting it, and Miriam, I'm sure you guys do a lot of training on that. Where are we seeing that? Or where do you see that being used, and Justin as well?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit a few weeks ago or 2 weeks ago about how data is currency. Like, that stuff is important. And it's not just, you sign up for a free service and your data is going to them and that's how you're paying for it. But it's also, you have a lot of data that you need to keep track of. You can, get a much better, return on your productivity and stuff if you utilize this data correctly. And that's why there are a lot of ways that, even small to medium businesses can analyze their data and see how best to use this. So things like using, knowing how valuable your data is and using the tools that make up the modern workplace. I know that obviously, like, Office 365 has one built in. I know Justin's worked with that before.
I use that all the time. There's a tool called My Analytics, and it just reviews your, at an individual level, like reviews your calendar and when you're on Teams and when you're in Outlook, and not necessarily scraping your data and looking, but just to say things like, hey, you have a lot of meetings scheduled this week. You should block out some time to do your work because I've noticed that you're, still logged into Teams and using Word at 8 o'clock at night, and you said that your business hours that you work are 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. So, you're obviously not, make sure you work on your scheduling better. And it's like, okay, yeah, on the one level, that's a little, looking at what I'm doing, right? But on the other hand, it's like, okay, that's cool, and
that's good information to use.
Yeah, and that's just straight built into the tool on an individual level. On a larger like organizational level, you can look at things and see that, okay, my team is spending a lot of times in meetings on these particular days. Let's see what we can do. Like, is that being used efficiently? Or this particular file is accessed all the time, but nobody has accessed this other file, and the file that nobody is accessing is the one that has important information. What's the, why are people doing that? And using that kind of information to drive decision making.
Exactly. I mean, I always laugh. I usually get the email pop up that says, you might want to delay the send of this email till delay send. I don't know if you guys get that one about 8:30, 9 o'clock. It's tomorrow morning. I get that one. I get that one quite a bit. So but it's good. I've been doing that now. So if you ever see emails from 8 o'clock, it was probably sent the night before. Yeah. So by the nose. But I mean, and this is such, just this kind of pulled together. These are just scratching the surface. There's just so much do with the modern workplace in terms of the there's so many pieces to it. There's so much, and so much improvements. Like we're just getting started on working, and making sure that this remote work experience doesn't become a bad experience for our staff, right? We want to make sure that it becomes a thing of positivity versus a negative kind of like end result. We're like, hey, that was a terrible experiment that went horribly wrong in the end, and just have 10 checkpoints in there. So I said we're just scratching the surface of this. We have a ton of information. We're gonna follow this as a full month of Modern Workplace, and so we have a bunch of new stream topics coming up. Modern Workplace Defined as today, effective Microsoft Teams meetings, some lightweight project management, and communications solutions for mobile workforces. We think that these are the pieces, and these are just scratching the surfaces of it. But I think this is going to give a lot of information of how you can take the tools that you almost already have in place in your business and utilize them more effectively this every day. So with that, we're also going to have a bunch of information around an updated Teams Power Pack for next week, so that we'll have so how to get the most out of it, some keyboard shortcuts, best practices, that sort of thing. And as always, please check us out at thevaliantway.com. Like, share, and subscribe. We have a ton of information. Please submit any questions. I know we're getting a ton of feedback on our YouTube channel out there. We love it. We love feedback. And with that, check out next week with effective Teams meetings and how to do them. So, Justin, Marianne, Megan, thank you as always, and look forward to seeing you next Thursday. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a good day. Bye now.